Dudley Moore was on the April 2nd, 1991 episode of Later with Bob Costas. Talked at length about his career with Peter Cook in England before coming to America and breaking out in the movie 10 with Bo Derek. A lot of time was spent talking about the sex scene between Bo and Dudley that had to be reshot because the first one was too explicit, much to Dudley's delight. And evidently Bo was very, very uncomfortable the whole time. Not the fantasy that every boy had off of the posters. And so, hate to burst the bubble, but it sounds like he enjoyed it. So, this is part one of a two-part episode, so you'll have to check out the second one.
Thanks for staying up later, and yes, Dudley Moore is with us tonight. He's part of a new Showtime series called Orchestra, which engages his musical talents, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But first, right on to the movies. You think it's fair to say, and I don't mean to embarrass you with this praise,
don't?
but
yes, you do.
Yes, I do. All right, I'll drop all
right,
pretense
okay.
of being a nice guy. I'm trying to make you as uncomfortable as possible. During a 10-year period or so, with varying degrees of success, people like Dudley Moore, Richard Dreyfuss, Woody Allen in his own way, Dustin Hoffman, all emerged as what would have been thought of previously as unconventional leading men, often with a comedic element.
Yeah.
So you played a role in that period of time in film history.
Fine. Next. No.
Suddenly he turns terse on me.
Yeah, I suppose, I mean, it was, in a way it was, I don't like to admit the word luck into my vocabulary, because if something doesn't happen, then you say, oh, it was unlucky, and I think that sort of stifles your creative thing, whatever that means. But, it was lucky that I did 10. It was lucky, in a sense. I mean, I was dying to do something around that time when I was in my early 40s. I wanted to do a story about a guy who was breaking out of his mold and doing something in a sort of midlife crisis, which I had experienced from a very early age, I think. But
a midlife crisis at 6.
At 6, yes,
Yeah.
6 weeks, actually. And I suppose, in a way, yeah, I suppose playing that sort of anti-hero type of person, I enjoyed it. I always thought I was going to be a caricature actor my whole life, because a character actor, or a caricature actor, as a matter of fact, because when you're my size, I don't know, how tall are you?
5'7".
5'7". He's towering over me.
A lanky 5'7",
A lanky
I am.
5'7".
Yeah.
Probably 5'7.5". I feel it. I feel that extra half
Actually,
looming.
Actually, it's a shade over 5'6.5", rounded to 5'7". If I was 5'7.5", I'd be listed at 5'8".
Well, I'm 5'2.5", you see, and I'm not sure whether it's one side or the other. I don't measure myself too often. Do you? Actually?
What are we talking about now?
We're talking about height.
Oh, okay.
So, I guess what was so very liberating for me about 10 and working with Blake was that I remember making one request of him. Can I play this sort of straight? I didn't want to play it like, with a silly voice or whatever. It was a cathartic way for me to sort of express myself in a way, which sounds very boring and really is, I suppose. But for me, it was a very good time, And that was the time when Arthur was made too. It was a very special time, and stuff that I did later, I couldn't quite understand whether, why it wouldn't make this amount of money or that amount of money, and I still don't know how that's done, but there we are.
George Segal essentially had the role that you wound up playing in 10, and then for some reason, shortly before filming, he takes a hike.
Yeah, I've no idea why. I've heard so many versions of this story. I've no idea why.
Have you ever come across Segal and asked him about it?
No, I haven't, actually. I've come across him, but I wouldn't dare ask him, actually. Hey, George, babe, why did you... I mean, I really would feel very silly doing that.
And Julie Andrews, I guess, had some misgivings, too, because, I guess, the size differential.
Well, yes, apparently, yeah. And Blake did at one point ask me to wear 5.5-inch heels, which I said would look a tad medieval. But I had them made in England. The people on the other end did fall down with laughter, but I managed to get these rather large-ish boots back, and I remember Blake coming to the trailer and having, you know, to be administered with certain medications to save him from dying with laughter. And he knew that there was no way in the world that he could work with me with these things on.
The famous scene in 10, the bedroom scene to Bolero. How many takes? This is what we need to know. How many takes? How difficult? How stupid? How goofy?
Well, we had to do it. I can't believe this. We did it the whole day. I mean, it was really a difficult day. John Derek was, you know, politely, I think, you know, told to sort of leave us, because it was very embarrassing, because we were running around stark naked. I was, anyway. I think Bo was. I can't remember. It's a long time since I've seen it, meaning the film. We did the whole thing, and the next day Blake said to me, we've got to do it again, because we saw too much. Now, when I think about it, you know, they could have printed it down or whatever, and maybe the genitalia were a little prominent, I don't know. But we had to do it all over again. I think he was really, maybe either we didn't do it well enough, or he was just, you know, having a really splendid practical joke on us. I don't know.
Was she uncomfortable with it, or was it a professional thing for her?
I think she was uncomfortable, yes, yes. Yes, without a doubt. I mean, I remember, yeah, she had her legs together and up, so that they were sort of, you know, up in the bed like that. And I said, really, it's fine, honestly, nothing, you know. But she was very, I think, quite understandably embarrassed by it. But I remember saying to Blake that I felt, you know, maybe if she could just put her legs down, it would look better, you know, because...
Something that would at least simulate being a willing partner.
Yes, yes. Although she, you know, every time we got into any sort of a clinch, she would giggle, you know, which sort of didn't exactly put me at my ease. I want you to know that, Bo. But no, she was very easy to work with, and I thought she did a great job, actually, in the film. I thought she was great.
How astonished were you by the reaction to the film?
Well, I was astonished because when I saw it in a fine cut, you know, just a rough fine cut, so that everything was a bit laborious. The jokes were a bit too long, and I felt quite suicidal afterwards. And I had no idea that it was going to be the sort of success. I remember Bo being over every magazine in existence and paper, and gradually it grew, I suppose, the popularity. But I had no idea that it was going to be that sort of fascinating, and nor did I feel that about Arthur. I had no idea. I don't think you do, really. I mean, you take your chances and sort of wait for that great audience wave to splash down or not, you know.
How hurt are you by subsequent reactions to films which were not as successful, either be it a box office rejection or a critical jab?
Oh, I'm very susceptible, I think, like anybody. I remember going around in England with a terrible scathing review in my pocket, which I used to sort of try and exorcise from me by bringing it out and reading it every now and again.
Yeah, it's the best possible strategy, to read it 17, 18 times a day. That'll put it behind you real quick.
Right. I thought it would. I thought I'd get used to it, but I never did. I never did. And there are certain people in life who really can't stand your guts. Have you found that? And you know, certainly there were things that I did I couldn't understand. For instance, when I did a film called 6 Weeks, and I did the music for it, and I loved the music, and I loved the film. And
Mary Tyler Moore?
Yeah, I couldn't understand it. I don't think Mary was, you know, absolutely sort of knocked out by the way it had turned out. But I guess I was blinded by something. I don't know. It's just another instance of me not really knowing what the hell works and what doesn't, actually. I really don't know. I mean, I guess all you do is what you can do, and that's it.
Peter Cook and Dudley Moore. What worked for a British audience but didn't work as well in the States? Or maybe the other way around?
Actually, most of our stuff seemed to work because we took off, we parodied. There were obviously verbal things that didn't work, you know, which we had to change. But we didn't do what a lot of the people advised us to do, which was to speak slower. There were very funny comedians in England who really didn't make it out here because they spoke very quickly, and they could not be understood, and the suburban sort of lingo was not really too available to people here. But mainly we didn't really have to do too much, actually, to Americanize things. You know, when we first did our show, which was in 1962, we did a Beyond the Fringe on Broadway, and then we did a two-man show, Peter Cook and myself, in 73.
Is it true that Peter Cook was partly the inspiration for the Arthur character?
Well, it's interesting you say that. You've certainly done your research on all this. I was in a London restaurant for him, and for him, interesting Freudian slip. I don't know what it means, but...
I'm just trying to help you do self-analysis here. Just kind of open things up. You say whatever occurs to you, and then suddenly a light goes off, and you've reached inside yourself for some deep, heretofore hidden truth.
Exactly. This is what I'm hoping for, too, and it hasn't happened. But I was in this restaurant with Peter, and some people said, "Hey, Arthur, how about a drink?" And I don't know if I said yes or no, but anyway, then they said, "Hey, how did you think of... What was Arthur based on?" And Peter, before I said anything, said, "Me." And I actually hadn't even thought about it, but in a sense, I suppose it was, you know, because Peter, I'm not telling any tales out of school, was, you know, had a real tussle with drink, and I suppose, in a way, it was very lovingly based on him, because I recognized the pain, you know, but it was strange. It wasn't a conscious thing, you know, when I did that character, you know, like that. It was really, you know, I suppose like Peter, at his very worst moments. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how people hang on, you know, having that much in them. Yeah. But I guess that what he was, in a way, the inspiration. It's interesting.
Audiences just loved Arthur, and obviously you were tremendous in it, received an Academy Award nomination. Liza Minnelli was wonderful.
Yeah.
But some of the best moments were between you and John Gielgud.
Who? I'm kidding.
Always kidding. Thank heaven.
Yeah, it was a very easy sort of time I had, you know, with him. He was, I suppose, in the face of this very dedicated, eloquent, elegant man, I tended to become my sort of Rumpelstiltskin, ribald, Rabelaisian self. And I tried to G him up, you know, a little bit, you know. But he was not G-able, and
Is this some sort of British expression that I'm...
G up, to G up?
Yeah.
Oh, it means to sort of, you know...
goose him?
Goose, yeah. Sort of make his mood a little more daft. That's another, yeah, rambunctious, whatever. But we did those scenes very easily. But he's such an easy man to work with. He's very easy. And he's basically, I guess in a sense, he's a very giving actor, but he's very concerned with what he does. And so you're riveted by what he does, you know.
Is it true that he didn't get a lot of the jokes? In a sense, almost like Margaret Dumont being so funny with the Marx Brothers, but she never knew what was really going on?
Well, I may be doing him a disservice here, but I got the impression from Steve that there were a couple of things he didn't quite get. Things that seemed to me very, very obvious, and they weren't sort of particularly American things. But he said, I don't get this thing. And so Steve would sort of just say it again, and well, okay, I'll say it, you know. But there were a couple of things he didn't quite get, I guess. And I think he wasn't too mad about some of the language a couple of times. You know, he was, although he has done some fairly raunchy plays in London, you know. But he was against, I think, maybe what he felt was a fairly gratuitous swear word here and there.
To me, his greatest moment in the movie is you announced your intentions, some fairly mundane thing that fascinated you because you were self-interested, and he kind of rolled his eyes and said, "I'll alert the media."
I'll alert the media, yes. I said I was going to take a bath. was wonderfully delivered, because I mean, the timing was very, he was torn away from his paper just vaguely, and I'll alert the media. Yeah, it's become a sort of a catchphrase. Maybe it was before, I don't know.
Do you think that Arthur could have been successful? I'm talking about the first one, 7, 8 years later. Because it seems to me, through no fault of the films, the attitude, the societal attitude toward drinking was no longer to wink at it and say that it could be lovable. Foster Brooks can't do his act anymore.
Yeah, that is outrageous in a way, I think, because although it is a very grave situation, there's no doubt in anybody's mind, there is a difference between a stage drunk and a real drunk. I mean, if somebody like Arthur came in through the door right now, I'd be horrified. I'm sure you would, and you'd run to assist or whatever.
Or else book him for tomorrow night's show.
Yeah. But no, I don't think you could do it. And I guess we did do a sequel. We did what, it was 7 or 8 years later or something like that. And I had no hope of it working not on that level, but on the level of just, being as funny. But I thought Andy Breckman did a wonderful job, although I know he doesn't think so. You did a wonderful job, Andy. And it didn't work at all. People were not amused. And I remember certain people, certain critics, who shall remain almost nameless, turned round completely and got quite vicious about it, almost as if they'd been betrayed or something, Yeah. So there are a lot of people out there who really want to give me the business, Bob?
But certainly not the folks at Later. They had to twist your arm to do foul play with Goldie Hawn? Not because it was Goldie Hawn.
Not because it was Goldie Hawn, no, by no means. But it was. I didn't really want to play another, oversexed twit, undersized at that. And I was, persuaded that by a lot of people to be in this film. And I couldn't understand. I mean, it was at a time in my life when I could have, certainly used the exposure, as it were.
Pardon me for laughing.
Oh, excuse me.
You shot me a wilting glance.
But I was finally persuaded. Colin Higgins, who...
You oversexed twit.
Yes, you oversexed twit. Colin Higgins finally persuaded me, and he was such a nice man, and he combined, as a matter of fact, the original part with another part in the script. And so the conductor and the undersized, oversexed twit became one, whereas they were separate before. It was really rather a nice touch, actually. Sort of gave me my first sort of American-based film to do, which was good. I was sort of against it, and I was sort of a little alarmed at what I did, because it was in the vein of what I'd done before, the sort of stuff that now works in England.
Moore's multi-part series Orchestra can be seen all this month on Showtime, and you can see him back here tomorrow night, whether he likes it or not. He's back here for part 2, and until then, see you later.